So, I have a confession to make because when you're posting a video to the internet that everyone can see, it is obviously customary to divulge your most vulnerable secrets. But I'm one of those people that overshares on Facebook, so here we go. A few years ago, my daughter did one of those family tree social studies projects at her school, and I decided to do the only logical thing a history teacher can do in that situation, which is get a subscription to Ancestry.com and go unbelievably overboard on our family genealogy. I got to a level of obsessed that was honestly unhealthy. Seriously. I was sitting up late at night on my computer just digging into my family tree for literally months, well past the time my third grader turned her poster in. And I learned some really fascinating and cool things about my ancestors. First off, my family actually already had documentation providing some very ancient lineage going back to the early Middle Ages. Because of that, I was able to trace my family tree back to amazing people such as Eleanor of Aquitaine, King Louis the Fat. He's the sixth Louis in France, by the way, the one who was all like active and warrior king like in his 20s. And then he had kids and learned about the importance of comfort food. So I was like, yes, I can see the relation, obviously. There were also several other medieval monarchs because they're all related. Gross, but true. So in case you're not following, I'm royalty. Anywho, I also had ancestors who were literally executed as witches. Has anyone read The Crucible about the Salem witch trials? John Proctor, Elizabeth Bassett. Yep, I am a royal witch. Also among my ancestors, Anne Ayres Chew. She is famous for haunting the Maidstone house in Virginia to this day. So if you ever see a ghost walking around the Maidstone house in a gray Quaker dress and a red scarf, that's my relative. I also have patriots who fought in nearly every war in American history, including one of George Washington's personal spies, Jesse Coles, who was part of the Oyster Bay spy ring in New York. All of these people are my ancestors, and it's pretty awesome. But I'm not here to confess about being a witch. Frankly, I tried to do that during my wannabe goth phase in high school, so that's old news anyways. The reality is, I found out that not all of my ancestry was easy to swallow. I also learned that there are members of my family who are complicit in America's greatest sin. My ancestors include 26 known enslavers. To my knowledge, my family tree is guilty of enslaving 185 people in their history. From my records, I could not find a single name of any of those people except for one. I don't have a last name. The man's name was Gilbert, and he was willed, just like property, by John Green to his wife upon his death. I also found that at least one of my ancestors actively participated in attacks against Native Americans. Now, at first, I tried to make myself feel better, which is very white privilege of me to do, by the way, by saying that I have over 11,000 people on my family tree at this point, and I could only find 26 enslavers. Why did I need to tell myself the word only? Well, because I felt really, really guilty. And here's what makes it feel even heavier. Although I remain as pasty white as my ghostly Quaker ancestor, I am the mother of 4 incredible biracial African American children. So trying to explain to them what I was discovering about their own family's past, as you can imagine, that pit in my stomach was enormous. So this is my confession. My name is Kara, and my ancestors were evil. I wasn't there, but I have no words for how deeply sorry I am and how disgusted I feel to know that in some twisted way, I am part of their legacy. The privilege I have today can be traced back to my ancestors' exploitation of 185 people, presumably people of color in this country. Now, I can and I do renounce those ancestors completely, and yet renouncing them isn't enough. I may have never met them, but I have benefited from their privilege. I have benefited from their moral depravity through economic gains and opportunities given and passed down to my family through generations. So, it is now my responsibility to pay back a debt owed in whatever way I can. I must help right the wrongs of my ancestors. And that's what's brought me here today. Because equity is not a black or brown problem. We should not expect people who were victimized to be forced to right the wrongs. That job should fall to the oppressors, the sinners, or in this case, their descendants. Because inequity is a white problem, and white people need to stand up and fix it, because that is our moral responsibility. I now know my history, and if you have a white ancestor who lived in Europe or the Americas at any time from the 1500s through the mid-1800s, the likelihood that your story is like mine, even if you don't know it yet, is pretty high. So what do we do about it? Finding out that your ancestors participated in enslavement, forced the displacement of native peoples, or other forms of harm, it's a lot to swallow and can leave you feeling a bit unmoored. But I want you to know that, one, you are not personally responsible or guilty for the actions of your ancestors. But you are responsible for how you respond to that truth. And that's where this conversation truly begins. I recommend that your first step is to clearly disavow the actions of your ancestors, unequivocally saying, I do not stand with what they did. That simple act matters. Excuses like, they were people of their time, that does not justify their wrongs. And rather than erase the harm, words like that actually demean the lived experiences of someone else's ancestors. And that continues the same cycle that we're trying to fix. We can remember our ancestors without excusing their actions and the systems of oppression they upheld. With that in mind, we must also acknowledge that generational trauma is real. The violence of enslavement, colonialism, and displacement didn't disappear with our ancestors. Its effects live on today in systemic racism, wealth gaps, land theft, and ongoing inequalities. And while trauma is passed down, so too is privilege. If your family benefited directly or indirectly, that's part of the inheritance you carry. Ignoring that will not help repair harm. It may feel uncomfortable or even potentially expensive. It might feel personally risky to stand aside on a potential professional opportunity. But ethically, your choices in those moments might be the best tool you have to stand against the wrongs that happened before. For better or worse, if you're like me, the world is still likely in your favor, and you will make it through. I just have a feeling that because you took the time to watch this video, you're a naturally tenacious human being. And even when this process gets hard, you've got this. Remember that you have the power to support systematic changes, or in some case, at least in the modern United States, readopt equity-based processes that are being slashed in our current society for the benefit of repairing generational harm that still impacts people today. So how can we move our acknowledgement into action? Well, we can start by educating ourselves and our children in an age-appropriate way about the full truth of history. Don't sugarcoat it for our comfort, because people in history certainly didn't have that luxury as they were living it. We can listen to and center the voices of Black, Indigenous, and other communities most impacted by historical harm. We can have the courage and morality to support repair efforts, whether it's land back initiatives, mutual aid, scholarships, or reparative policies. We can challenge racism and injustice in everyday spaces like schools, workplaces, neighborhoods, even uncomfortable family conversations at Thanksgiving. And honestly, don't shy away from those uncomfortable conversations, because it's through them that we learn and process. And please don't rely on marginalized community members to carry your discomfort through this. If you seek advice from Black, brown, or otherwise marginalized people, listen more than you talk. Don't be, forgive me, the Pharisee from Luke's gospel, seeking praise for your morality. But don't be the quiet tax collector either. Do the right thing loudly to build support for your cause and global betterment, to be bigger than yourself, bigger than your ancestors, but do it with absolute humility, not for self-gratification. And yes, it's normal to feel grief, guilt, or confusion. It's also normal to hesitate and think about protecting ourselves first, our money, our opportunities first. But doing the right thing was never necessarily meant to be easy. It can be uncomfortable, and that's okay. It's normal to struggle and weigh your needs against those of the community, but when we can look at the bigger picture, or we even reference our sacred prophets from nearly any religion, we can see that it is through our discomfort, for the right reasons, that we fulfill the best parts of our own humanity. We can't change the past, but the future is still unwritten. We have the chance to be the kind of ancestors that our descendants can be proud of. Ancestors who faced the truth, honored the pain, and worked to repair what was broken. So, if you've uncovered painful truths about your family's past, don't let it paralyze you. Let it guide you. Disavow the harm, support the healing, and take your place in building something better. Thank you.